Tokyo, 1971. A silent arena, a drawn blade, and one man standing with empty hands. The crowd didn't know whether they were about to witness courage or madness. A legendary female samurai master, undefeated with the sword, had issued a challenge that echoed through Japan's martial circles. Steel against skin, tradition against evolution. And across from her stood Bruce Lee, calm, focused, unarmed, no armor, no weapon, just speed, instinct, and a philosophy that rejected limits. The air felt heavier with every step toward the center. One strike could end it. One mistake could define it forever. What happened in that Tokyo Showdown would blur the line between myth and reality. She was not born into legend. She carved her way toward it through discipline that bordered on obsession. In a Japan still deeply respectful of its martial heritage, the path of the sword remained sacred. Dojos preserved centuries-old teachings with precision, repetition, and reverence. Within those walls, she trained not as a curiosity, but as a student expected to meet the same uncompromising standards as anyone who stepped onto the polished wood floors. From childhood, the rhythm of her life followed the sound of steel leaving its sheath. While others practiced casually, she immersed herself in structure, foot placement measured to the inch, grip adjusted until wrists burned, cuts repeated until muscle memory erased hesitation. The katana was not an accessory in her hands. It became extension, voice, and discipline fused into one. Her instructors were traditionalists. They believed the blade demanded humility before mastery. Early mornings began with stances held long enough to test resolve. Even slight imbalance invited correction. Precision mattered. Breathing mattered. Focus mattered. Over time, her posture developed into something unmistakable, grounded, stable, unwavering. As years passed, her skill sharpened visibly. Sparring sessions that once exposed weakness began revealing control. She learned to read shoulders, hips, intent. The sword was never swung wildly. It moved along clean arcs, deliberate lines designed to end conflict decisively. Where others relied on power, she relied on timing. Tokyo's martial community is not easily impressed. Reputation spread slowly, built on proof rather than rumor. Yet whispers began forming around her performances in demonstration matches. She displayed speed without sacrificing balance. She showed restraint without losing threat. Observers noted that she wasted no motion. Each draw, each pivot, each strike aligned with disciplined economy. Competing in exhibitions against seasoned practitioners, she refused to retreat under pressure. Her footwork glided across the floor, maintaining optimal distance. When opponents overextended, her blade stopped inches from target. Controlled, precise, commanding respect. Victories accumulated quietly but steadily. The psychological dimension of swordsmanship fascinated her as much as technique. She studied not only how to strike but how to unsettle. Eye contact held just long enough to create doubt. Silence maintained before engagement to amplify tension. She understood that battle often begins before steel meets steel. Training extended beyond the dojo. Strength conditioning hardened forearms and shoulders. Meditation sessions strengthened composure. She practiced drawing from kneeling position, from standing, from motion. Adaptability became part of her foundation. Though rooted in classical methods, she believed stagnation invited defeat. Her undefeated streak within exhibition circuits elevated her status. Invitations to perform demonstrations increased. Audiences admired not only her capability, but her presence. She carried herself with measured calm, neither boastful nor submissive. Confidence radiated without words. Traditional attire framed her silhouette during ceremonies, but beneath aesthetic formality lay relentless preparation. Blisters healed, bruises faded. Discipline remained constant. She rejected shortcuts. Repetition built reliability. Reliability built dominance. As recognition grew, so did scrutiny. Critics questioned whether her success stemmed from novelty rather than superiority. She answered not with speeches but with performance. Each challenge reinforced credibility. Each clean execution silenced skepticism. In sparring, she became known for reading micro-movements, a twitch of fingers on hilt, a subtle breath intake. These signals guided her reactions. Rather than reacting late, she anticipated early. That anticipatory instinct separated competence from mastery. Her undefeated reputation was not forged through recklessness. She valued control above spectacle. A sword is final, therefore discipline must be absolute. She trained to end exchanges swiftly, minimizing prolonged risk. That mindset created efficiency under pressure. Tokyo in 1971 balanced modern energy with deep-rooted tradition. Martial arts existed not only as sport, but as cultural inheritance. Within that landscape, her rise symbolized both preservation and evolution. She honored lineage while proving personal merit. Students began seeking instruction from her dojo. She taught fundamentals relentlessly. Grip alignment, blade angle, mental stillness. She insisted that mastery required stripping ego from movement. Only when ego disappeared could clarity emerge. Her demonstrations incorporated both speed drills and controlled sparring. Observers often remarked that her transitions felt seamless. Defensive posture flowed into offensive cut without pause. Reset positions emerged naturally. Nothing appeared forced. The undefeated label followed her everywhere. It carried weight. It inspired pride and expectation. Yet she did not flaunt it. Instead, she intensified preparation, aware that reputation attracts challenge. Complacency was enemy. When talk of foreign martial artists demonstrating unconventional philosophies reached Tokyo's circles, curiosity sparked. Discussions about efficiency beyond rigid systems contrasted sharply with classical doctrine. She listened carefully. Tradition taught respect, but not blind acceptance. The notion of testing blade against empty hands might have sounded theatrical to outsiders. To her, it represented inquiry. If someone claimed mastery beyond structured form, let that claim meet disciplined steel, not from arrogance, but from conviction in centuries-tested principles. Her path had been built on repetition so deep it eliminated doubt. She trusted her foot placement. She trusted her reaction speed. She trusted the integrity of her training. Years of refinement stood behind every draw of the blade. Within private sessions, she simulated unpredictable scenarios, opponents attacking from unusual angles, sudden changes in rhythm. She prepared for irregularity without abandoning structure. Flexibility layered atop foundation. By the time 1971 unfolded fully, her name carried authority within Tokyo's martial environment. She was not merely a practitioner. She was symbol of resilience, discipline, and capability within a system often misunderstood by outsiders. Her rise did not depend on spectacle, though spectacle followed. It depended on mastery earned incrementally. Each repetition etched deeper pathways into reflex. Each challenge strengthened composure under scrutiny. When the idea of facing Bruce Lee emerged in conversations, it did not feel like fantasy. It felt like inevitable collision of philosophies. She represented refined blade tradition. He represented liberated martial expression. The prospect electrified observers precisely because both carried legitimacy. Behind closed doors, she intensified drills further. Draw speed measured in heartbeats. Step transitions timed against metronome rhythm. Focus sharpened to needlepoint. Awareness. Preparation became meditation in motion. Her undefeated status was not shield, but responsibility. If she accepted confrontation, she would defend not only herself, but the honor of her discipline. That awareness did not intimidate her. It clarified purpose. The sword rested in its sheath, polished and balanced. Calloused hands wrapped around the hilt with familiarity born of thousands of repetitions. Breath steady, eyes calm, training complete, yet never truly finished. The tension before the blade met bare hands did not begin in the arena. It began in whispers across Tokyo's martial arts circles. The mere idea of a swordmaster facing Bruce Lee without him carrying a weapon sounded unreal. Some called it reckless. Others called it revolutionary. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was not a normal exhibition. This was a collision of philosophies. The venue chosen for the encounter carried quiet authority. Wooden floors polished to reflection. Paper lantern lighting casting long shadows. A space where tradition was not decoration but atmosphere. Spectators arrived early, filling seats in controlled silence rather than chaotic excitement. This was Japan in 1971. Respect first, reaction later. Backstage, preparation unfolded differently on each side. The female samurai master moved through ritual. She inspected her katana with meticulous care. The blade caught light in a thin silver line. She checked the balance, the edge, the smoothness of the draw. Every movement was deliberate. She tied her attire with steady hands, posture upright, breath slow and centered. This was familiar territory. Discipline, readiness, structure. Across from her, Bruce Lee prepared in contrast. No armor, no weapon, no heavy ceremonial ritual. His focus came through fluid motion, stretching, light, footwork drills, shadow movements slicing through air. His breathing was controlled but dynamic. Where her preparation reflected centuries of preservation, his reflected adaptation and spontaneity. The difference in energy between them was palpable. Spectators debated in hushed tones. A sword requires only one clean strike. Hands require proximity. Distance favored steel, speed favored flesh. Which would dominate, reach or reaction? The air in the arena grew heavier as both stepped into view. The samurai master entered first. Her presence commanded quiet. The blade remained sheathed at her side, yet its existence shaped the space around her. She bowed with traditional composure, acknowledging both audience and opponent. Moments later, Bruce Lee stepped forward. Calm, balanced, eyes alert but relaxed. He returned the bow without mockery, without arrogance. Respect given, respect received. Then came the distance. They stood several feet apart. Enough space for a draw, enough space for a lunge, enough space for a mistake to become irreversible. Silence deepened. The tension in that silence was different from a boxing crowd's roar. It was intellectual tension, observational tension. Every spectator understood that timing would decide everything. The samurai master's thumb rested lightly against the guard of the katana, prepared for a lightning draw. Bruce Lee's hands hovered in a natural guard, open, relaxed, ready to intercept rather than clash directly. Neither rushed. She tested him first with subtle shifts in stance, adjusting her lead foot by inches. In sword combat, the smallest angle change can create lethal openings. He mirrored not by copying her structure but by adjusting his range, stepping slightly outside her optimal draw line. The blade slid from its sheath with a sound that cut through the room. A soft metallic whisper, gasps rippled faintly through the audience. Bruce Lee did not flinch. That was the first shift. Many fighters react to the visual threat of steel. He reacted to motion instead. His eyes tracked not the blade itself but her shoulders, her hips, the origins of movement. She initiated a controlled forward step, blade angled diagonally. It was not a reckless attack. It was a probe, testing reflex, testing courage. He did not retreat wildly. He adjusted with economy, a slight pivot that repositioned his center line away from immediate threat. Distance recalibrated. Again, silence. The tension intensified because neither side made dramatic gestures. There was no shouting, no flamboyant displays, only calculation. The second motion came faster. Her draw transitioned into a sharp forward, cut, clean and precise, aimed not to graze, but to end. The arc of the blade moved with disciplined intent. Bruce Lee moved simultaneously, not backward, not forward, angled. His footwork carved a narrow escape path just outside the blade's main trajectory. His lead hand rose not to block steel, that would be foolish. but to disrupt her wrist alignment at the moment extension peaked. Contact was brief, controlled, calculated. The audience exhaled collectively. The tension before impact had transformed into tension within motion. She reset quickly, pulling the blade back into guard. Her expression remained composed. No frustration, only recalculation. She had expected speed. Now she had measured it. Bruce Lee maintained fluid stance, weight evenly distributed. His hands remained active, not rigidly locked into a single guard pattern. His philosophy demanded adaptability. Against a sword, rigidity becomes vulnerability. Space between them felt smaller now, even though distant. What gave Bruce Lee the edge that night in Tokyo was not reckless bravery, nor was it supernatural speed alone. It was philosophy translated into movement. While the female samurai master stood as a guardian of centuries-old discipline, Bruce Lee stood as a student of adaptability. And in a confrontation where one mistake could mean irreversible consequence, adaptability became his greatest weapon. Bruce Lee did not believe in being trapped inside a single system. His core belief was simple yet radical. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is uniquely your own. Against a swordmaster trained in structured sequences and refined patterns, he did not attempt to counter tradition with another rigid structure. He approached the duel as a living equation, constantly adjusting variables in real time. From the moment the blade left its sheath, Bruce Lee's eyes were not locked onto the steel itself. He understood something fundamental about weapons. They are extensions of the body. To fight the blade directly is to fight the end of the motion. To control the situation, you must read the beginning of the motion. He studied her shoulders, her breath, the subtle tightening of fingers around the hilt. Philosophy became perception. Where traditional sword training emphasizes decisive commitment to cuts, Bruce Lee emphasized interception. The concept of the mumbar, stop hit, striking during the opponent's initiation rather than after completion, was central to his thinking. In that Tokyo arena, the principle applied not only to punches, but to space itself. He entered not recklessly, but at the precise instant her attack transitioned from preparation to execution. His footwork reflected freedom rather than adherence to fixed stance. He shifted angles fluidly, denying her optimal line of attack. He never lingered in front of her blade longer than necessary. He stepped off center, disrupting geometry. This wasn't improvisation born of panic. It was controlled adaptability. Another philosophical edge he carried was emotional neutrality. The presence of a sword can provoke fear or overreaction. Bruce Lee trained his mind to remain undisturbed by threat. Fear narrows vision. Calm expands it. Because he was not mentally overwhelmed by the blade, he could perceive micro-openings others might miss. The samurai master relied on clean arcs and balanced transitions. Bruce Lee relied on broken rhythm. He refused to move on predictable timing. Sometimes he paused half a heartbeat longer than expected. Sometimes he accelerated suddenly. That irregularity made it harder for her to set traps based on pattern recognition. He also understood economy. Against a blade, wasted motion is dangerous. Large blocks invite injury. Overcommitted counters create exposure. His responses were compact. Small deflections at the wrist, slight parries at the forearm, subtle body shifts that altered angles without exaggeration. He conserved energy and minimized risk simultaneously. Perhaps most crucially, Bruce Lee did not treat the sword as mystical. He respected it deeply, but he did not elevate it beyond human control. He saw it as a tool governed by physics, range, speed, leverage. By focusing on those mechanics rather than the drama of steel, he reduced the duel to timing and structure. The philosophy of directness also surfaced. When opportunity appeared, he did not hesitate. Indecision is costly in high-stakes confrontation. His counters were decisive, even if restrained for demonstration. He entered quickly, redirected efficiently, exited cleanly. No lingering exchanges. No ego-driven flourishes. There was also his concept of water, fluid, adaptable, formless. Against the linear nature of sword strikes, he became circular. Against forward aggression, he angled sideways. Against rigid stance, he remained loose. Water does not clash head-on with rock, it flows around it. That metaphor manifested physically in every pivot and slip. The female samurai master maintained impeccable composure, but Bruce Lee's unpredictability forced continuous recalculation. When she adjusted guard height, he altered distance. When she shortened her draw to reduce vulnerability, he tightened his entry timing. It became a contest not of strength, but of responsiveness. Bruce Lee's conditioning also contributed subtly. Speed without control is chaotic. Control without speed is vulnerable. He had trained explosiveness alongside precision. His ability to close distance in fractions of a second narrowed her advantage of reach. Each time he stepped inside the blade's effective arc, he reduced her margin. Another philosophical difference lay in outcome perspective. The samurai tradition often centers on decisive conclusion, one clean strike ending conflict. Bruce Lee's thinking embraced continuous flow. He did not seek one dramatic finishing moment. He sought cumulative control of exchanges, gradual dominance of timing. Even his guard position reflected philosophy. His hands were not rigidly clenched. They were alive, responsive, ready to intercept, redirect, or strike as needed. That looseness allowed faster adaptation than a fixed defensive posture would permit. He also refused to mirror her emotional intensity. When she committed fully to a forward burst, he did not meet it with equal forward aggression. Instead, he absorbed momentum and shifted it offline. By declining symmetrical reaction, he prevented escalation into pure collision. The edge did not emerge from overwhelming superiority. It emerged from clarity. Bruce Lee understood that martial arts are not collections of techniques but expressions of principles. In Tokyo, those principles manifested under pressure. Observers in that arena may have entered expecting